He's on a Zoom. There have been interviews this
So in the
week.
interest of getting things moving, how about if we call this meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance?
That works.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much for coming. Let me get to the right board docs. Any preferences to how we take the items on the agenda? All right, let's do it in, how about in order? The employee handbook. Sean, if I am not mistaken, we are not going to be approving this as a policy. We are just reviewing this on the policy level, and then it is going to the full school committee. Is that my understanding? This is just an administrative document and not something that we're incorporating in policy, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does anyone have beyond thanking you so much? I get the thank you very much, Laurie and Carolyn and Sonia for all the work that you put into this. I get the impression from those initial kind of prefatory disclaimers that you and or John have already had a look at the employee handbook, Sean.
Yes.
And I had a couple of questions. I don't know if they are substantive enough to merit any change, but just in terms of language, reading through it, I don't know if anyone else did. Does anyone mind if I quickly go through?
No, not at all.
Okay, page 3, the last paragraph, the second to the last sentence, it reads the board. And I take it from that it refers to the school committee?
Yes. We did do a lot of Control F, find, and yes.
The only reason that I meant is that it's the only place in the document where it refers to the school committee as the board.
I know.
And I don't know if we need to change that to reflect it or whatever, but that's an administrative decision, I guess, and I can leave it up to you.
Yeah, we will definitely change that.
Page 8, the mask language. And the mask language is not the same language as we have. It's the original placeholder language. And I didn't know if there was thought that it was going to be whatever the final is for the students, for example, would also be applicable to the staff. Because at the moment there seems to be some sort of disparity.
Yeah, and I think I put that in the notes section for Sonia and Carolyn, that we have to mirror the language that we're using for students. Okay. When state agents, health agencies, blah, 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 blah. So right. Yes, I mean, what you have is our draft, and we're going to circle back, and we've worked on it we started it last year, late last fall, and then the pandemic came and whatever, but thank you for picking up on that. Yes.
Thank you. 3 more quick ones. Page 12, and the term refrain in the second paragraph under social media responsible use. I don't know if, to my mind, refrain doesn't necessarily mean prohibit, but I don't know if they are interchangeable or what precisely it is that you meant to say, and maybe they are interchangeable. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that section was very important to me because I just see a lot of teachers and other staff members throughout my career who've made some boo-boos. And so we can't really prohibit, and Sean, I'm sure you could jump in here, but we can certainly cue staff to be ever mindful and intentional of their public face and their public role. I mean, I myself, you know, especially around election time, can post or like certain things on family members' pages that I like. Yeah. So it makes me more intentional, knowing that we're going to have an employee handbook, not with the force of law or even policy, but expectations. I think it's more an expectation, Ed. And Sean, you can jump in here.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you're absolutely right that, you know, there's difficulties surrounding the use of the First Amendment and whatnot that come into play when we're affecting, as a government agency, we're affecting what individuals can and cannot say. And the First Amendment's pretty clear on this, that if it's affecting the school day in some way and disrupting the educational setting, the school department can move in to limit or curtail certain messages, so long as it's content neutral and viewpoint neutral. But in terms of prohibiting the use of social media, it gets very difficult. Now, I think that the statement here that has been identified is refrain from using social media while on work time or on equipment we provide, which, you know, there I think you can certainly have a policy that says you're trying to balance two things. You know, you want to encourage the use of social media if it's for educational purposes, but you don't want it to necessarily be used for personal means. And I think that's the distinction you might have to draw here.
It seems as though it's been drawn, and it's clear, you know, that the condition is unless it is work related as authorized by your manager. I just don't know what distinction, if any, there is between, you know, urging people to refrain from something and having a blanket prohibition against it. Maybe there isn't any. Happy to move on. That I will leave that as an administrative matter, and you guys can debate what it is. On to page 13, under the health insurance. So my question about this is with the tense of it. And it is the second sentence, for example. The school department shall limit, which in some ways implies in the first sentence, the LCSD by vote of its school committee will comply. But that seems to imply to me that at the moment there's a recognition that they are not in compliance and that this is some future provision where they will be in compliance. And so I just had a question about the tense of that paragraph and have it read, should it read present tense? You know, I presume that we are in compliance with this. And if so, why wouldn't we just say that we are in compliance rather than we will be in compliance? Are we in compliance?
Point taken. Yes, we are. I'm so glad that we are looking at this.
Okay.
Because three sets of hands have been in this document for, you know, several months. So, and then we had to, you know, re-link everything to board docs and so on and so forth. So thank you, Ed. Absolutely.
No, it's clear that there's a lot of effort that has been expended, and I'm not trying to go through and be. I just
we welcome it.
Reading it, trying to, you know, whatever. Since it has to come before the. It's like wanting to make sure that I did my homework here for the meeting. And believe it or not, I only have one more then on page 17. And the question is with respect to out-of-district travel and the way that it reads. And I ask only because I don't recall this ever arising in my tenure on the committee.
Is it the meal reimbursement?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. I don't even have to look at it because I know. And we've been looking, and other districts have meal reimbursement language in their policies. Carolyn and I could find nothing. So that's fine. And that's also in the comment section, you know, our running commentary there in our draft. So we're going to, you know, pull that out.
I don't even have an issue with it being there. My question was just with the way that it was qualified with annually. I mean, I think it makes sense for the school committee to have to weigh in on it if that's what they, you know, whatever it is. But it hasn't happened annually, and then to require it annually, it almost becomes burdensome. It's just one other thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you struck annually, it would
be okay.
be
Yeah,
well.
I mean, so the foundational document is an exemplar that I found a year ago. I looked all over the place. And then we took that exemplar and we sort of, localized it and everything else. And truly, we work on it when we have some discretionary time and we're calling each other and texting, Sonia, Carolyn, and I. But that came up twice, and we've yet to find anything in our district that references it. I think a lot of districts with high school and the accreditation process that is ongoing and requires a lot of out-of-district visits, etc. I think that's why many school committees have that language somewhere in their policies. We can just pull that out. I mean, Carolyn and I have been talking about it for a few weeks now.
It's
But I knew that's what you were referencing.
it's entirely, again, it's administrative, so I'm not going to weigh in on it, but
Right.
just had that question. And I don't have those. That was the last of the ones in reading through that I came up with. Does anyone
Awesome.
have anything else that they would like to add? Okay.
Nope, I'm good.
Moving on then to item.
Oh, Mariah's got her hand
Mariah's
up.
got the wrong one. Looking at two
Ed?
units. Yes.
Mariah's got her hand
Oh,
up.
hi, Mariah.
Yep, I just was wondering, as far as it going on to be approved at the regular meeting, do we need to edit the draft, or can we just give the update that it will be edited based upon?
Yeah, I think it'll be edited continuously.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And that's not when we'll deal with that at the regular meeting. Okay. Anything else on employee handbook? Visitor policy, moving on. Let me turn this off here. So Sean, thank you very much for providing that language. I had one, and the draft that we have here has the language that I borrowed from Portsmouth, in addition to the language that you provided. When we discussed the mask provision with respect to the dress code, it was with the need to be more prescriptive in terms of what sort of masks would be allowed. I appreciate the CDC distinction that you and being in compliance with that and allowing that to be flexible. Sean, my one question is, when I went to the CDC website to look it up, so the CDC, for example, counsels against using masks with valves or any, otherwise having breathing portals on it. But they don't in any way have language that requires masks that have multiple layers. So something like bandanas and gaiters would be approved, allowed, if we just align ourselves with the CDC. And so my question is whether or not we want to do that. Certainly, it becomes onerous in terms of visitors. Does it make sense that we have one set policy for staff, visitors, and students? And if so, then I guess we just need to align whatever mask provisions we have with those. If not, then I guess we don't. And I will open it up to others' thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think simplicity, to the extent that we can have simplicity with this stuff, is probably useful. And to the extent you can have consistency, I would recommend you do that as well. I was under the impression, and perhaps I was mistaken, that this CDC guidance had been updated to prohibit things such as bandanas or other type masks that weren't the multi-layered or surgical masks. But if that's not the case, based on your research, certainly one way to get around that is to have the more prescriptive language that you've provided here, and that can just be simply dropped in. I also don't know to what extent the Rhode Island Department of Health has specified particular types of masks to wear. Again, the governor gave her press conference today, and there was a lot of talk about masks and the type of masks that would be worn. So again, the choice is really the school committees as to how prescriptive they would like to be, and just acknowledge that although we can't foresee it now, there could be changes in the future, and either you'd go through the traditional process of updating the policy so you're in compliance, or you have the necessary language in there to allow for some wiggle room.
I've looped in Jean Dunn on this issue, and RIDA follows CDC, and the CDC has just been updated, I think, on the 28th or something like that. And I think if it becomes too prescriptive, and guidance is constantly changing on masks, on plexiglass barriers, on circulation in classrooms, I think we need to leave room for changing guidance. And to Ed's point, the CDC, I think on their mask site does say that there's no absolute decision coming from the CDC and most departments of health regarding using gaiters, bandanas and so forth, that their effectiveness is still up in the air. I think from a school nurse perspective, it's whatever the kid, or the visitor has on, we want to see a mask. And if we start drilling down to that granular level, we're going to be the mask police. So we want a mask. We can't readily see, eyeballing it, if it has triple layers, cotton and all that. So, I think the ideal is we want triple layers, cotton, et cetera, but if someone's masked and coming in and we're just going to eyeball the mask. We're really not going to look at it's, what it's comprised of or whatever. We were on a 90-minute Zoom today with Dr. Aaron Bramage from UMass Dartmouth, and he feels the same way. A mask is a mask is a mask. Mask and distancing, mask and distancing. If we have to start policing our visitors' masks, it's going to be tough. So
I don't disagree. Polly, your thoughts? I know that you had brought this up.
So are we just saying this is the requirement for visitors, or is this the requirement for students as well?
So Sean has suggested that we have consistent language for visitors, students, and staff.
Right.
So effectively, if we are deciding one here, we would be deciding the other.
Right. So while I don't think anyone should have to be like totally investigating someone's mask that looks like it's a cotton triple layer one, I know that there are some gaiters. We have some that we purchased the beginning of the summer that were super cute to wear, and they are so thin. You can blow a candle out through it. You can feel my wet breath if I try hard enough. I've been reading a lot of mask policies, and they seem to have not allow gaiters and bandanas and those things. And I think it just gives us a place to start. I mean, maybe we can, I don't know. I think if we don't mention those, we're going to have somebody with a crocheted scarf around their neck with, grandma squares with big holes in it coming in saying, I've got something on my face. And we'll have kids with bandanas that nothing is covering from their mouth down. I just think that we're opening up to a unsafe can of worms.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Polly. I mean, I would hope that it certainly would be the case that if a student were, at the outset, I want to note that I don't read any provisions in this for enforcement. So to the extent that it's not provided for, nobody's, can play the role of mask police, but
we are providing students and staff with the masks that are the best practice when it comes to, droplets and so forth. So definitely for staff and students, we are providing those. And Principal Whip has hers on right now. Thank you, Principal Whip. And we have thousands of the surgical ones as well, the medical ones, the disposable. But when it comes to visitors, I'm trying to think of the signage. I was on site today and yesterday. The signage did go up today. Sonia, am I right? And it's right there at the front. And we're using everything that RIDO sent to us. We're using the infographics that they sent to us. So
yep, the signage is going up for the you must wear masks at all.
Right.
Don't come in if you're sick. These are the ones from the Department of Health.
Right.
And then at sinks you have to wash your hands and guidelines for washing your hands, and then the other signage is to use hand sanitizer.
Right, and so we just got those from RIDO, I think within the past week. And so everyone is printing them out in every school district across the state. And I think with masks, the best practice, that's what we're following in our school with students and staff. And we've paid for them, et cetera. With visitors, we're following RIDO and CDC guidelines that any mask is better than no mask. The medical surgical ones, the roundish ones, I forget the name, please forgive me. I mean, no one should be wearing those, but people are, so it's a difficult call. We want masks and distancing. Most of the masks out there and most of the buffs and so forth do meet, do comply with RIDO and CDC guidelines. You are the policy-making body. If you want us to enforce that with visitors, we're already doing it with students and staff.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Please do.
Obviously, we're not going to be able to enforce masks. I mean, that's crazy. But in my own opinion, but we can say in our policy, you can't use a gaiter, you can't use whatever, certain schools have already said what you can't use.
Right.
So can't we just say, here's what you can't use and just leave it at that?
That is my thought, but I don't, by the same token, I don't really have an issue in saying that all face coverings must be disposable surgical masks or multi-layer clean reusable cloth masks. That's Portsmouth's language.
Yeah.
So they are implementing that. I think that if we make these provisions and then they are not enforced, we still have the consistency for visitors, students, and staff. But it might be capricious, but we just, visitors don't fall under the same sort of level of scrutiny that a student would. I would hope that if a student were to show up at school wearing a bandana, that they would be provided, whatever the school has for best practice mask.
Absolutely. We bought.
And I think if we adopt the lesser CDC language, then we can't even require that be the case, because that bandana would be sufficient for the CDC.
Some bandanas are triple ply,
It
some
could be.
buffs.
I don't.
Some buffs. I know buffs are.
So
So-
I feel like as adults, we need to be good role models. If our adult visitors can't be good role models, then they can wait out in the parking lot. I don't. But
You're not going to be enforcing people with masks. That's crazy. But can't we just say no gators, right? No
gaiters, no bandanas, no
bandanas.
It's in the policy, and
no gators, no bandanas. What else?
no scarves, no.
I think maybe multi-layer would be better, just sort of a
Reasonable,
blanket.
isn't it? No gaiters, no scarves, no bandanas. That's reasonable, no?
Well,
That's what I've
there
seen.
are gaiters and there are scarves that are multi-layered.
Yeah, but we can't check them though. So if we can't check them, we just move on and say you can't use them. There's plenty of other stuff you can use.
I had a staff member on site today who had a beautiful gaiter.
Yeah.
It was a bandana sort of print, and it was definitely a gaiter, and it was multi-layered. And I even asked about it. So that's the piece here. I think everyone's jumping on the bandwagon and making compliant bandanas and scarves now, and I mean masks are everywhere. Maybe just putting multi-layer or surgical disposal or something.
Portsmouth already has multi-layer in there, and the way that it reads is neck gaiters, scarves, bandanas, and other single-layer masks. So, I mean, clearly a multi-layer bandana, scarf, or neck gaiter would be acceptable.
Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
Yeah. I mean, we could put it in there, definitely. And hopefully people, like Polly say, are responsible enough to do the right thing. So I think you put in there, no single layer gaiter, mask or whatever the hell it is. And yeah, there you go.
I agree.
Okay.
Right? And just like that.
Language makes sense.
Having said that, I like your, Sean, I prefer the language in your first paragraph to the placeholder language that we have been using, because among other things, you reference town ordinances, which the other language doesn't. And the second paragraph, I mean, my thought would be to use your first two paragraphs, insert the paragraph from Portsmouth that begins, all visitors to Wilbur McMahon shall be required. And then the question is school grounds and hours. So I don't know, Pat, as a member of the rec committee, has the rec committee had any discussions about, I mean, if the school wants to say, you've got to have a multi-layer mask on the basketball court, that would be at all times. That to me seems like it probably is going too far. Might be in the interest of public health, but I'm going to guess that there would be a certain amount of pushback from the community.
So I have a meeting, a rec meeting, the last week, the last Monday of this month, and I'll put that on my agenda and see if they want to recommend anything to the town council with masks. We don't have jurisdictions over the playground.
Okay. I mean, I don't,
the field, I think, well, I'm gonna definitely put that on the agenda and see if they want to recommend anything to the town council. And all we do is recommend to the town council, so they can either accept it or not.
okay. I mean, I know my son plays basketball up at the courts. Nobody there is wearing a mask. Nobody at the tennis courts is. I don't know how the school wants to do this. I think that while school is in session, I'm assuming that the tennis courts are going to be part of the recess plan as they would typically be. Is that correct, Lori?
Basketball courts.
Basketball courts, I'm sorry.
I still do that too.
It's funny how we do that, huh?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Ed, could you repeat that, please?
The basketball courts are still going to be part of the recess plan. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we need to have provisions at least while school is in session for, on school grounds. And the question is, do we want to limit it to while school is in session? Using the best solution seems to be maybe Sean's last proposal, which is this policy is to be enforced against any person or entity using WMS facilities or on school grounds while the school is operating or during public meetings taking place on school grounds.
I like that language.
So Ed,
Yes.
are you saying if I need a group that I don't want to target, the Little Compton Kite Flyers decide to use the school after hours,
Oh, that's different.
just something that they don't need to wear masks while they're in the building?
if they're in the building, I think that they should. I mean, I can't see how they, would not. We would not.
Okay, well, because of the during school hours,
That would be like the grounds, or.
right. But if it's not during school hours, I mean, I think they should still have masks on. So
I
should
agree.
it, right, so should it not say during school hours?
Well, so the way that this Sean's reads is entity using WMS facilities.
Yeah.
Or on school grounds.
So, yes,
At any-
but
at
if
any-
we put a comma after facilities, does that then separate it from the while school is operating? So that while school is operating would only apply to the grounds.
Hmm.
This is like the paper chase. How do you, I mean, would the insertion of a comma solve that?
Maybe. I was just, in your email, you had mentioned, and I don't know if it was a typo or not, that entities like the school committee, if the school committee went back in session, would not be required to wear masks?
No, I was just trying to play with the language in my head and figure out how
Okay.
to phrase it and what would be possible exceptions. And
Okay.
clearly you don't want to have that,
Okay,
I think
yes,
if
all
you're
right.
on School committee after hours, you want to have it. And
Right.
this would seem to apply to that, Sean's language would do that. But I think that anybody using the facilities at any time should be required to
Gotcha,
use
yes.
a mask.
Yeah.
And then make a distinction between the facilities and the grounds.
Okay.
I mean, is the playground an extension of the facilities? Could be. In which case you have a mask provision for the playground? Or do we need to specify that separately?
I don't know who would regulate the playground on the weekends, making sure people had masks out there. Like,
I don't think anybody would, but
no,
included in the language.
I
it could
think
be a
if-
suggestion.
I think that if you're going to say there's masks to be worn on the playground when school is not in session, that would be something the council would pass.
It could be. I don't know where that falls. Some of this is just a no man's land kind of area.
And they haven't done that, so.
Right, so, but
They
there could be,
couldn't do it.
there could be 100 kids breathing their germs all over the playground on Tuesday night, and then Wilbur School comes in the next morning and is playing on the playground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know, I don't know what is the playground open right now?
The current plan is for us not to use the playground.
Oh.
However, there's too much surface area for us to sanitize. However, when we had a 5-member team yesterday from the Education Operations Center, I told them that. We met outside in the tents for at least an hour. And one of the members of the team, it was a multi-agency team, one of the members said, we have come up with a very inexpensive, not too time intensive, labor intensive process for playground components. And we were outside and they did realize how huge our playground is. And I said, all of our TAs have been trained in recessed rocks, so they know how to implement an alternative to sort of that free range play on the playground. And as promised, they emailed me last night the protocols. Sonia and I are going to look at those with Chris Osborne and see if it's even viable, a viable plan for Wilbur McMahon. So as it stands now, the playground is not being used. It's not in our plan, our reopening plan. We just don't feel we can sanitize it to the degree where we mitigate most of the risk of using it. That may change. Regarding community entities using our facility, it has been established by RIDO and RIDE that not until phase 4 should we be allowing entities to use our building. Sorry, Patrick, that might include your, the recreation program. So, because, we have such strict sanitizing protocols, cleaning, disinfecting, and sanitizing. So,
I mean, Laurie, to the extent that the gymnasium is also used for town events, the exceptions would have to be made. I mean, we just had voting in
the election, yes.
So, and that's going to be the case again in November. What sort of provision do we have there?
We don't have children in the building yet, and so it was fine yesterday. We had staff, but the cleaning was ramped up for that. We had windows open, we had the doors wide open, we had the AC blowing, social distancing decals were all along the way. November, we're going to have to figure that out. And
Well, there won't be anybody in the building.
but the kids will be in. Kids will be in the next day, so we'll be good. But in terms of opening up to community entities, a local art program contacted us, and we are not comfortable yet in having outsiders come in and run programs with students. We're not comfortable yet. We'd have to, we have to wait for phasing to change. It's different with, daytime use for an election. There's plenty of time at night to clean. It's difficult when groups are using it after school and into the evening. So that's where we are. This is all new, and we're all germaphobes. I think definitely Sonia and I are definitely germaphobes. So we're going to work with what's going on with elections and school committee when you want to come back and do your evening meetings in person, etc. But having groups like the arts programs, Girl Scouts, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
That still leaves us with, parents at pickup and that sort of thing. So what is the best way for us to approach this? I think that language still works, although I can't imagine it happening. I can't imagine it would be the case that somehow over the course of this academic year, it's going to be the case that people won't have to be wearing masks indoors. So I don't imagine that this would have to be reversed at any point. But, would it help just to make that language slightly more fluid and have a provision for, revocation by the administration or whatever it would? I don't know what would be the best way to do this. If you're saying not until phase 4. Phase 4 may never arrive. If phase 4 arrives and phase 4 doesn't come with these provisions, then clearly we have a problem being compliant with phase 4. So in which case we need to just have language, that we need to have some sort of proviso that would allow us to be,
I think using qualifying language like we're using with the masks, when the Department of Health requires blah, 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 because we could be moving in and out of phases. They talk, sometimes they're talking about phase 3.5. So you're the policy making body, whatever you
provision
really,
shown.
No.
I'm sorry, say that again, Ed.
Do we even need this enforcement provision language?
The policy to be enforced against.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Well,
the first paragraph, if we adopt yours, all visitors are required to comply, and it's not qualified according to place or time.
Right.
That's the thing.
So, is that broad enough to encompass and allow us just to avoid this and ditch that?
Yeah, I think it could do that. I think that's a fair point. And I think in terms of anything that changes that language in that first sentence of that first paragraph, or sorry, the second sentence in that first paragraph, the applicable laws and guidance related to public health crisis may change. I think that gives you your flexibility that I think you're looking for, if I understand your question correctly.
Okay, you do. Thank you very much. All right.
Okay.
So if we, Polly, does that make sense to you? That we will just say that, you know, assume that that first sentence is to be interpreted to mean all people at all places at all times, but then it's subject to the practical.
Sure.
And I think that flexibility allows you in the situations that you're describing. Let's say it's a basketball game. I mean, there's being guidance that is being delivered about how to play sports and when a mask is appropriate or not. And you have in your second paragraph, all visitors shall be required to properly wear a mask. Well, properly wearing a mask during a basketball game is different than properly wearing a mask while walking down the hall.
Right.
Sure. So this is a quick recap then. And Mariah, this is with you. So we are in agreement that we would adopt Sean's first paragraph and we would substitute it for the first paragraph that we have that is all in green. Does that make sense? Are we agreed?
Yep.
on that?
Yes.
So we will adopt Sean's second paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Then we will adopt the second paragraph that is in green. But looking at that second paragraph in green, we will eliminate the last sentence. This policy is to be enforced for any person or entity using WMS facilities or on school grounds at any time during the hours that the school is in session. We'll just eliminate that one.
Okay. Yep.
I think you can actually eliminate the sentence before that as well. Every visitor must wear a mask unless excused by a medical practitioner.
Okay. But if we are going with consistent language, we have that medical excusal language for students.
Correct, and all I'm saying is if you look at the second paragraph that I provided, you'll find it in the last part of that second sentence, or it's one sentence. So
thank you very much for being on that. Okay, so we get rid of the last two, Mariah. Is that right? Okay.
Okay.
And then that's where we ended. Is that right?
My only question is, did we decide that we wanted to keep Sean's last, his second option underneath or do we decide that that's covered by the very first two sentences?
Covered by the first few, and we're going to drop it.
agreed.
So Ed, I've sent you a PDF version of this, and I'll send you another new one. If you could just look it over one last time, because I am assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys would like me to apply this also to the student dress code. I don't know if I can say that because it's not on the agenda.
I think that we will approach it by saying that we want consistent language across all of them. So I think that, sure. Although, so the PDF draft that you had just sent me includes.
Yeah, I'm sending you a new one right
Sean's
now.
last sentence.
Yeah, I'm sending you a new one right now.
And we are going to get rid of every visitor in green. Get rid of every visitor must wear a mask unless excused by a medical practitioner.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
You want to send one to Sean too, to have him do one last?
Sure. Yeah.
And Polly, and does anyone else have anything that they want to? Add to this in any way? This is flashbacks of facilities use. I'm sorry this is taking so long.
This is not nearly as bad.
Facilities.
Okay, got this one.
But this is a historical time, you know, where facilities use was, I'm feeling wistful for those days.
Yeah, just throw that facilities use policy right out the window
I
these
tell you,
days.
I could do facilities for hours if we could just go back.
Me too.
I think you got it, Mariah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
We good? Okay.
Awesome.
Is there any, let me go back to the agenda. I'm guessing that we have public input on the agenda. Is there any public input? Hearing none, happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a second, and Laurie seconds that, Mariah. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. I don't hear any opposed. So we are adjourned at 5:46. I thank you very much. See you all shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.